So imagine this, right? You've got a customer, and they are literally walking right past like three brightly lit, super established corporate coffee chains.
Yeah, the big ones.
Exactly, the massive ones. And they are, crossing this busy, rain-slicked street, dodging traffic and everything, just to buy a $6 latte from this tiny independent shop that's like tucked away inside some old loading dock.
Right, which makes no logical sense on paper.
Do no sense at all. But why are they doing it? Because literally 3 minutes ago, while they were waiting for the crosswalk light to change, this 7-second video popped up on their phone,
Huh.
and it showed a barista at that exact hidden shop, like, completely failing to catch a rogue ice cube.
Just a totally raw moment.
Yeah, it was super authentic, it was hyper-local, and it, like, instantly hijacked their actual physical commute route. So today, we're completely dismantling this whole myth of, going viral.
Which is so needed, honestly.
Right. Because we're going to look at the cold, hard mechanics of how social media algorithms are, and I mean this literally architecting where we walk and what we buy in the real world. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way.
Glad to be here. And it really is a profound shift, because for the longest time, the underlying assumption for basically any small business was that digital marketing was essentially a lottery.
Oh, 100%, like pulling a slot machine lever.
Exactly. You pull the algorithmic lever, you slap whatever trending audio track is popular that week over a incredibly basic video of your storefront, and you just kind of cross your fingers.
Just praying for views.
Right. You pray the platform showers you with millions of views. But that mindset is actually, well, it's incredibly dangerous for a physical brick-and-mortar business.
Wait, dangerous? How so?
Because it breeds total inconsistency. You start treating your marketing budget and, honestly, your time like casino chips instead of, engine parts.
Engine parts. I like that. So if you are listening to this right now, whether you manage a physical storefront yourself, or maybe you're like studying consumer behavior, or you're just insanely curious about why your neighborhood is suddenly changing shape based on, well, vertical video trends, this is going to fundamentally change how you view your daily commute.
It really will.
Because we're going on a total masterclass journey into the mechanics of localized social media marketing. And we are using a very specific, super highly competitive lens to do it.
The local coffee shop.
Yes, the local coffee shop, the ultimate battleground.
It really is. And to navigate all this, we're unpacking this truly comprehensive strategic blueprint today. It comes from Frank Heidenreich.
Right, the chief marketing officer over at Whoop Social.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he has spent over 14 years in the trenches, just scaling organic social strategies for businesses. So what we have in front of us is his recently updated, this is from March 2026, his updated guide specifically focused on TikTok trends for coffee shops.
And what immediately struck me about this blueprint, like right off the bat, is how it completely reorients the end goal.
Yeah, it throws the vanity metrics out the window.
Totally in the trash. The thesis here isn't about racking up 3 million views from teenagers halfway across the globe who will, frankly, never, ever step foot in your city to buy your product.
Right, because what good does that do you?
Exactly. Zero good. The entire mission here is turning digital algorithmic distribution into actual, trackable, physical foot traffic.
And that is the absolute core argument of the whole text. Modern social media marketing for a physical location is not magic. It's a predictable, highly engineered flywheel.
A flywheel. Break that down for me a bit.
So it's basically taking established, psychologically proven video formats, right? And then you inject hyperlocal data variables into those formats so the algorithm knows your exact GPS coordinates.
Okay, so feeding it the location.
Right. And then finally, tracking the direct business results at the actual cash register. We are taking all the mysterious magic out of the process and replacing it with pure, trackable mechanics.
Okay, so let's get into the mechanics of the content itself then. Because, before you can track a sale at the register, you have to actually make a human being stop scrolling on their phone.
Which is the hardest part.
It's insanely hard. The internet is just pure chaos. You have, fractions of a second to capture someone's attention?
Less than half a second, usually.
Wow. Okay, so the blueprint leans heavily into this concept of the POV micro story, the whole "you are here" theme.
Yes, the immediate immersion.
Right. I was trying to visualize this when I read it, and the best analogy I could come up with is that it's like opening an action movie right in the dead center of a high-speed car chase.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Because you don't get like a slow, sweeping drone shot of the city, right? You don't get an opening crawl of text explaining who the villain is. You are just instantly strapped into the passenger seat.
And that immediate immersion is entirely intentional. When a viewer sees a first-person perspective, say, a hand reaching across a wooden counter, or the immediate super loud sound of a steam wand, or even just the crinkle of a pastry bag, their brain completely bypasses the orientation phase.
Because they already know the setting.
Exactly. In under half a second, the visual and auditory cues establish the context. They know where they are. Yeah. They're in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And the platform's algorithm heavily rewards that instant retention.
Okay, but getting them into the scene is just the entry fee, right?
Right, because they can just as easily swipe away.
Exactly. So to keep them there, the text says you have to introduce what it calls microtension.
Yes, microtension.
I love that phrase so much because it sounds so dramatic, but the stakes are actually, like, incredibly low. We're not talking about diffusing a bomb here.
No, not at all.
We're talking about questions like, will that massive tower of whipped cream collapse before they get the lid on?
Precisely. Or, how is the barista going to fit that giant croissant into that tiny little paper bag?
Right.
The human brain is just hardwired to seek resolution. If you present a subtle, incomplete action, the viewer experiences this tiny spike of cognitive dissonance. They just really want to see the end of the loop.
It's like an itch you have to scratch.
Exactly. So the video starts by flashing a custom order ticket with some absurdly complicated 8-syrup drink request. The immediate tension is, well, what on earth does that look like?
And will the customer actually drink it?
Right. You show the ticket, you show the chaotic build process, and then you cut to the handoff. The entire watch time is driven by the psychological need to see that specific micro-conflict resolved.
But wait, the goal isn't just getting them to watch until the end, is it? Because the blueprint spends a ton of time on the strategy of the rewatch.
Yes, the rewatch is critical.
It suggests designing moments specifically so that the viewer is almost like forced to watch the video a second or third time. But how does that not just annoy the user? I mean, if I have to watch something 3 times to get the point, I'm usually pretty annoyed.
It's all about the pacing of information, really. When a video loops and the user watches it again, it pushes the completion rate over 100%.
Oh, right, because they watch the whole thing plus a little extra.
Exactly. When in the eyes of the algorithm, a video with 120% completion rate is pure gold. It signals to the system that the content is incredibly dense and highly engaging.
So the algorithm is just eating that up.
Absolutely. So you engineer that rewatch by exploiting human curiosity. The blueprint actually suggests using really quick cuts of on-screen text, maybe a secret ingredient list or a hidden menu code that flashes by just a fraction of a second too fast for the conscious brain to read on the first pass.
Oh my gosh, I have to admit I fall for this daily.
Everyone does.
I really do. I'll see a flash of text, and my thumb just instinctively clamps down on the screen to stop the scroll, and I'm sitting there waiting for the 15-second loop to come back around just so I can try to pause it at the exact right millisecond.
It's a trap, but a highly effective one.
It really is. The author also mentions these blink and you'll miss it physical moments, like a really intricate latte art design that only stays on screen for half a second before the lid just gets slapped on.
Right, because it forces active participation rather than just, passive consumption. You have to work to see it.
Yeah.
But if we pull back from the individual video for a second, there's a broader structural strategy here to turn that momentary attention into an actual habit.
Because for a local business, a one-time viewer is basically useless.
Exactly. You need repeat visitors, people coming in every Tuesday. And that brings us to the architecture of recurring series.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second, because when I read this section, my immediate reaction was, this sounds exhausting and super repetitive.
I can see why you'd think that.
Right. The blueprint advocates for these strict formats like order of the day or regular of the week or 1-minute barista school, and it explicitly instructs the creator to keep the first 2 seconds identically framed every single time.
Every single time.
So if I'm a creator or even a viewer, doesn't watching the exact same 2-second intro every Tuesday get incredibly boring?
It seems counterintuitive, especially if you think of yourself as like a Hollywood director trying to constantly innovate and be artistic.
Yeah, why not show off your range?
Right. But think about the cognitive state of the user. They are scrolling through an endless, chaotic feed of completely disparate information.
Right, it's like a dance video, then a news clip about a war, then a dog barking.
And the financial tip about 401ks. It is an overwhelming barrage of context switching for the brain. So by keeping the first 2 seconds identical every single time, the business drastically reduces the cognitive load for that specific user.
Oh, so it's actually a relief for their brain.
Exactly. They instantly recognize the visual signature. Their brain says, I know this. This is the 1-minute barista school from that shop
I
downtown.
know what to expect.
Right. Because they already understand the premise, they don't have to spend any mental energy figuring out what they're looking at. They skip the orientation phase completely and go straight into anticipating the value.
That is fascinating.
Series formats consistently outperform standalone videos in viewer retention because they literally train the audience to return. Plus, from an operational standpoint, it frees the business owner up.
Oh, so?
Well, you put your creative energy into the variable, like the specific lesson that day or the specific drink, instead of trying to reinvent the wheel with a brand new camera angle and lighting setup every single morning.
Okay, that operational efficiency makes total sense. You save your brain power for the actual project. And speaking of the value proposition, the text actually breaks down the verbal hook too, like what you actually say in those first few seconds. It claims the most effective format is a promise with a qualifier.
Yes, a promise with a qualifier.
So instead of a vague statement like, look at this amazing latte we made.
Right, which means nothing. You attach a specific condition to the value. So you say, today's order is less than €5. Or, here is one hack to fix bitter espresso at home.
It's like a verbal contract. You are giving me 15 seconds of your time, and I am going strictly to deliver this one specific piece of information.
Exactly.
But I have to say, out of all these formats, the one that absolutely fascinated me the most was what the blueprint calls the comment engine.
Oh, the comment engine is brilliant.
It really is. They outline this concept called Build a Drink with Me. The creator shows a lineup of, say, 5 different syrups and says, what should we make tomorrow? You decide in the comments. It completely turns a passive video into a democratic election.
And this is where we really see the transition from basic content creation to actual algorithmic manipulation.
Manipulation.
It's not just a video. It is a meticulously designed engagement trap. On these platforms, comments are one of the heaviest weighted metrics for distribution.
The algorithm loves comments.
It adores them. If a video is generating intense discussion, the algorithm assumes it is vital content and pushes it way wider. By presenting a visible list of options and asking the audience to vote, you are drastically lowering the friction to comment.
Because you aren't asking them to formulate an original, profound thought.
Exactly. You're just asking them to pick A or B. And everyone has an opinion on vanilla versus caramel.
Obviously. Vanilla all the way, by the way.
Naturally. But the watch time also naturally inflates because the user is staring at the ingredients, debating their choice in their head, and then scrolling down to read the comments to see if their choice is currently winning.
It creates an open loop.
Exactly. It creates an open loop. Then you fulfill the promise. The next day, you film the winning drink being made, and you physically tag or dedicate it to the specific user who suggested the winning combination.
I can totally see the community aspect of that. But operationally, let's be real. If I'm a small business owner dealing with a morning rush, doesn't collating 100 comments and filming a totally custom drink the next day become a complete logistical nightmare behind the bar?
It absolutely can be, if you don't bound the experiment.
Right.
The secret here is that the illusion of infinite choice is actually heavily constrained. You only offer ingredients you already have prepped and ready to go. You're essentially tricking the audience into marketing your existing inventory for you.
Wow, that's sneaky.
It is. And the algorithmic reward far outweighs the 2 minutes it takes to tally the votes at the end of the day. You signal to the platform that your account generates active community participation, which actually raises the baseline visibility of every subsequent video you post.
It's just smart business. Now, there is one more psychological trigger in this section that I really want to touch on because it feels so, I don't know, universally human. It's the need for completion. The before and after format.
Oh, the visual transformation. Humans love it.
We really do. Showing a chaotic, messy espresso bar being wiped down, or an empty, sad-looking pastry case methodically being filled with fresh, perfect croissants. Why is it that I can sit there and watch a stranger clean a counter for 30 seconds, but I can't bring myself to clean my own kitchen?
It's funny, but it actually taps into our deep neurological drive for order.
Order.
Yeah. When we see a state of disorder, like a messy counter or spilled coffee grounds, it creates a subtle, almost subconscious psychological itch.
An itch.
Yes. And when the video shows that mess being systematically ordered and cleaned, it scratches that itch for you without you having to do the work. It provides a vicarious dopamine hit of resolution.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. By condensing a 10-minute cleaning task into a highly sped-up 15-second time frame with a definitive sparkling endpoint, you create a piece of media that is almost impossible to scroll past. The viewer is just compelled to stay until the transformation is finalized.
Okay, so let's pause and look at this arsenal we've just built here. We are dropping people into the action with first-person POVs. We are injecting micro-tension to keep them watching. We are flashing text to force a rewatch. We are using identical intros to lower cognitive load. We are running democratic comment engines to spike our engagement metrics, and we are satisfying their brains with visual cleanup transformations.
It is quite the list.
It is a psychological masterclass.
It really is. But, and here is the brutal reality check for a brick-and-mortar business, all of those psychological triggers are completely, utterly useless if the people watching your video are located 2,000 miles away.
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. If I run a neighborhood cafe in downtown Chicago and my beautifully crafted before and after cleaning video gets 1 million views from like teenagers in Australia,
Right.
I mean, my ego feels great. It's a fantastic vanity metric, but it translates to exactly $0 in my cash register.
Zero. Which is why the strategy must immediately pivot here. We have to transition from the psychology of human attention to the architecture of the algorithmic map.
The map. Let's get into the map.
We have to look at how a localized business can actually manipulate these massive global platforms to draw a tight digital fence around their immediate physical neighborhood.
So let's unpack this hyper-local distribution strategy, because the tactical details here basically blew my mind. You essentially have to convince the algorithm that it knows your exact physical street address. And to do that, you feed it metadata.
Metadata is everything. Think of the algorithm like a blindfolded postal worker who is trying to sort an infinite mountain of mail.
Okay, blindfolded postal worker.
Right. The video you create is the letter. It might be a beautiful, well-written letter, but without an address written on the envelope, the postal worker is just throwing it into the wind. The metadata is the zip code.
I love that analogy. And the blueprint lays out exactly how to write that zip code. It's not just about, typing a hashtag in the caption.
No, hashtags aren't enough anymore.
You have to drop these digital breadcrumbs in the very first 3 seconds of the video. You verbally speak the name of your specific neighborhood. You put the neighborhood name on the screen in native text. And visually, your opening shot actually includes an identifying local landmark.
Yes. Even if it's just the recognizable color of the train station awning across the street.
Right.
It is a redundancy system. You are giving the platform's image recognition, its voice-to-text processing, and its textual analysis systems all the exact same geographic data point simultaneously.
Overloading it with the location.
Exactly.
Oh.
The blueprint provides a really fascinating example of how to frame this. Instead of a generic title like, look at our morning rush.
Which could be anywhere.
Right. You title the video, the 8.1 Welv train crowd, or the school drop-off line on Maple Street.
Which frankly feels much more authentic and less like a slick commercial anyway.
It does feel organic, but functionally, it is pure machine communication. Identifying your specific commute route contextualizes the video for the algorithm. It tells the system, hey, this piece of content is highly relevant to user accounts whose mobile GPS coordinates regularly place them near Maple Street between the hours of 7:30 and 8:30 a.m.
That is slightly terrifying, but also marketing genius. And Heidenreich actually ran a split test on this exact concept, which I found incredibly illuminating.
The A/B test.
Yes. He produced the exact same video twice, same lighting, same barista, same coffee being poured, but one had a generic hook, best iced latte near Central Station. The other used a hyper-specific, highly localized hook, best quiet cafe to work in Riverside.
And the data from that A/B test forms the foundation of this entire local strategy. The hyper-specific Riverside version actually earned fewer total views.
Wait, fewer views? Let me stop you there. Explain why fewer views is actually a victory here. If I'm a business owner, I want the biggest number possible, right? No, I want to go viral.
Not if those numbers are empty. We have to fundamentally reframe how we view these platforms. TikTok, Instagram Reels, they're no longer just entertainment feeds where people watch people dance or do lip syncs.
Right.
The blueprint cites a staggering statistic. 61% of TikTok users discover new brands and products directly on the platform. It has evolved into a primary search engine for local commerce.
Oh, so instead of opening Google Maps or Yelp and typing coffee near me, they're just opening a video app and typing quiet cafe Riverside.
Exactly. They aren't passively consuming. They are actively searching with very high intent. When someone saves a video of a cafe, they're using that save function as a proxy for a localized itinerary.
Like a to-do list.
Yes, they are planning a future physical visit. By using hyperlocal metadata, you actively sacrifice the broad, useless global views to ensure your video is the exact answer to those high-intent local queries.
Okay, so you've optimized for search. But the blueprint introduces another concept for hacking local networks that feels almost like like a cheat code. The reciprocal post, or the three-stop hop.
Oh, this is an absolute masterclass
Yeah.
in taking traditional B2B, business-to-business networking
Mm-hmm.
and disguising it as organic, entertaining content.
Okay, so picture this scenario for the listener. You run a coffee shop. Down the street, there's a popular independent bakery. Instead of making a video just talking about your own latte, you partner with the bakery.
Right.
You create a video showing your latte sitting right next to their famous croissant. And they create a counterpart video on their channel showing their croissant next to your latte. But you don't stop there. You frame it as a neighborhood tour.
The tour aspect is key.
You say to the camera, okay, stop 1 is the coffee here. Stop 2 is the pastry down the street. Tag a third local spot in the comments that we should walk to next.
On the surface, from a consumer perspective, this is just wonderful community building. It taps into what the strategy calls the density of trust.
Density of trust.
Yes, you are acting as a curator of your neighborhood, not a desperate salesperson pushing a product. But beneath the surface, algorithmically, it is a highly engineered trap to force the platform to map your local ecosystem.
Okay, break that down for me. How exactly does the algorithm process that collaboration?
Well, these algorithms run on what we call graph databases. They don't just look at content in a vacuum. They look at the relationships between user accounts.
The web of connections.
Exactly. When you execute a three-stop hop, you have the audience from the coffee shop and the audience from the bakery physically colliding in the comment section. User A, who loves the coffee, and user B, who loves the bakery, are now both commenting on the same video, suggesting a third location, say the local indie bookstore.
Right.
The algorithm observes this overlapping interaction. It forms a geometric node between these users. It realizes, wait, these completely disparate user accounts are all interacting with content, mentioning these specific physical locations within a 1-mile radius.
Mind blown.
Right. It categorizes that entire cluster of users as a hyperlocal network. And once you trigger that mapping, the algorithm will aggressively boost your future content, specifically to that dense cluster of local users, because it has verified their shared geographic interest. They literally create a localized echo chamber of visibility.
It's like setting up a digital geofence, but instead of paying for expensive ads, you're tricking the organic algorithm into building the fence for you for free.
Precisely.
And this idea of the density of trust brings up another really fascinating contradiction in the blueprint. If I'm a business owner and I finally have a little bit of marketing budget, my first instinct is to find the biggest influencer in my city.
Sure. The mega influencer.
Yeah, the person with 1 million followers. I want that massive megaphone. But the text explicitly says that is a terrible idea.
Because in local commerce, scale is often the enemy of conversion. Yes. The blueprint directs local businesses to entirely ignore mega influencers and instead aggressively target micro creators. We're talking about individuals who might only have 800 to 8,000 followers, but who actively live, work, and create content in your immediate neighborhood.
But 800 followers. In the modern social media landscape, that feels microscopic. Why would I waste free coffee on someone with 800 followers?
Because you're optimizing for trust, not reach.
Mm-hmm.
An influencer with 1 million followers has a globally scattered audience. If they post about your specific cafe, 99.9% of the people who see that video physically cannot visit your store.
Right. They live in London or Tokyo.
Exactly. It's totally wasted distribution. But a micro creator with 2,000 followers, their audience isn't a fan base. It's a social graph. Those followers are their real-life friends, their former high school classmates, the people they go to the gym with.
People who actually live near them.
Yes. When that micro creator posts a video of your coffee shop, it completely bypasses the user's advertising defense mechanism. It feels like a genuine recommendation from a peer. It creates that, oh, I can actually go there right now factor.
I see.
The blueprint notes that targeting these micro creators often triggers copycat behavior, where their friends then come in just to film the exact same video. It is the lowest cost, highest conversion distribution model a local business can build.
Okay, so you've fed the algorithm the right metadata zip code. You've mapped the neighborhood with the three-stop hop. You've activated the local micro creators. You are officially on the local map. Great.
The foundation is set.
But here's where the rubber meets the road. If I'm managing a storefront, I cannot be in the back room agonizing over TikTok transitions for 5 hours a day. I have staff to manage, inventory to order, floors to mop.
Which brings us to the operational pivot. Once you have established this initial local attention, you have to outsource the heavy lifting. You have to turn your customers into your marketing channel.
Right. Building user-generated content loops, UGC. Making the customer do the work without them feeling like they're actually doing work.
The foundational premise here is that you already have a steady daily flow of potential content creators walking through your front door. The bottleneck is not a lack of people with smartphones.
Everyone has a phone.
Everyone. The bottleneck is a lack of material. You have to give them something specific to film.
The blueprint calls this designing filmable moments. And the constraints are fascinating. You can't just have a nice-looking lobby with some plants. You need to design a product interaction that has a natural start, middle, and end, all occurring in under 10 seconds.
It has to be punchy and self-contained.
Right. And the practical examples provided are brilliant because they require almost zero extra cost. A bold, visually striking lit-off cup reveal.
Oh, people love those.
Or a seasonal garnish, like a sprig of torched rosemary that changes every single week. Or a specific celebratory physical ritual when a customer finally fills up their 10th punch on a loyalty card. Or simply a moment where the barista uses a specialized tool to print the customer's actual name into the latte art foam.
You are essentially building a stage, handing them a prop, and giving them a script without ever saying a single word.
That's exactly it. And the timing for leaning into this behavior couldn't be better. The blueprint cites a really telling macro trend regarding consumer discussion volume.
The 2025 numbers.
Yeah. In the first half of 2025, TikTok discussions, specifically centered around coffee shop chains, skyrocketed to 240.3K. That represents over a 31% share of the total conversation, up massively from just the previous year.
That data point is the wind in the sails of this entire strategy. It proves that consumer behavior has already permanently shifted. People are already deeply predisposed to document and broadcast their daily coffee runs.
The urge is already there.
The innate desire to share their routine is there. The marketer's only job is to reduce the friction of that action. The blueprint points out a really reassuring mathematical reality, too. You do not need every customer to be a creator.
You don't need 100% participation.
Not at all. If you can optimize your environment to get just 2 to 3% of your daily transactions turned into user clips, you are feeding the platform a massive, continuous stream of localized, authentic social proof.
But getting that 2 to 3% is the tricky part, right? When I was reading this, I kept thinking about the cringe factor. Doesn't it feel incredibly desperate for a small business to have a laminated sign sitting next to the tip jar that says, "Please help our struggling small business by posting a video of us on TikTok"?
It feels incredibly desperate, yes. And it actively repels the customer.
It's just awkward.
The blueprint explicitly warns against that kind of pleading. The psychology of the prompt must be handled with surgical precision. It must remain entirely customer-centric.
So you completely strip out all the marketing jargon.
Entirely. You use what the text calls frictionless microaction prompts, and you place them at the exact point of highest emotional satisfaction, which is usually right at the pickup counter when they are handed the beautiful product.
The handoff.
Right. Instead of the corporate tag us in your posts, you use phrasing that centers their personal experience. Film your sip reaction. Take a video of your cup reveal.
That is such a subtle but powerful shift. It doesn't feel like a transactional request from a business. It feels like an enhancement of their personal narrative. You are literally giving them permission to be the main character of their own aesthetically pleasing morning routine.
Exactly. If the prompt describes a moment the customer secretly already wants to capture, it functions as a helpful suggestion rather than a marketing campaign.
But even with the perfect prompt, UGC loops can be a slow burn. Someone might film that beautiful cup reveal, but then they just save it to their camera roll and forget about it. How do you force them to actually upload it and tag you today?
You inject artificial scarcity and urgency through gamification.
Gamification.
Yeah. The blueprint discusses developing timed releases entirely around these photogenic moments. For example, engineering a specific signature drink that magically changes color, but only for the first 30 seconds after the espresso is poured over the ice.
Oh, wow. So if they don't film it right then, the moment is gone forever?
Exactly.
Or the text mentions hiding a cryptic code or a riddle somewhere on the physical menu board. If a customer films a video explaining the riddle, they get a reward.
The explainer video format is incredibly potent because when a local customer posts a video trying to solve a puzzle at your shop, their comments section fills up with their friends trying to guess the answer. It skyrockets the watch time.
It's that comment engine again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another tactic is the next topping policy. You announce that the first person to comment on today's user-generated video gets to dictate the secret off-menu flavor for tomorrow.
That's brilliant.
By inextricably linking the sharing mechanism to a time-sensitive event or a fleeting product, you hack the procrastination loop. You create a psychological scenario where if the customer waits until they get home to post it, they miss out on the cultural moment.
Okay, so this machine is humming. You have dozens of local customers filming these beautifully framed 10-second microstories in your shop every single week. The next operational step is for the business to harvest that content and use it on their own official channels. But this isn't the Wild West. You can't just rip a customer's video and run it as an ad.
Absolutely not. The blueprint is very firm on the operational logistics here. To make this UGC flywheel sustainable, you have to play a very respectful, standardized permission game.
Right. The logistics outline are pretty straightforward, but absolutely vital. You ask for permission via direct message in a casual, non-intimidating way. When you repost it, you establish a recognizable, cohesive aesthetic on your own feed. Maybe you always use the same font for the caption, the same style of on-screen credit, and you always tag the original creator.
Yes, credit is non-negotiable.
You can even incentivize this ecosystem with perks that cost the business almost nothing in hard dollars, like naming them the shot of the day winner or giving them priority access to a new seasonal pastry.
But beyond the logistics of the digital repost, there are crucial physical boundaries that must be maintained in the store itself. This brings up the operational reality of encouraging filming in a public shared space.
Right, because nobody wants a camera shoved in their face before they've had their morning caffeine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The blueprint stresses the absolute necessity of demarcating specific, intentional filming areas. Usually, this is focused tightly on the product handoff zone. You must ensure your staff knows they're in a high-probability filming zone and that they are entirely comfortable with it.
And if they aren't?
If a barista opts out, you protect them. You move them to a different station. You must absolutely respect any customer who doesn't want to participate.
Yeah.
And as a hard operational rule, you never film or encourage the filming of minors, and you are vigilant about not capturing private conversations in the background audio.
It all comes down to creating a predictably safe environment. If regular customers start to feel like they are constantly under surveillance in your cafe, they will simply alter their commute and stop coming.
They'll just go to the corporate chain.
Right. But if they feel safe, respected, and in control of the narrative, they will happily participate in the loop.
Trust is the lubricant for the entire flywheel. Without it, the machine just grinds to a halt.
Okay. We have covered a massive amount of ground here. We've broken down the raw psychology of the hook and the rewatch. We've manipulated the algorithmic graph database with hyperlocal metadata and three-stop hops. We've engineered organic advocacy by turning the customer into a localized broadcast network.
It's a lot.
It is, but now we hit the ultimate undeniable reality check. Everything we have discussed for the past 40 minutes is just digital noise, unless it can be definitively measured at the cash register.
This is the crescendo of the strategy. This is where the digital flywheel locks into the physical business. It is about abandoning the idea of posting to post and instead tying specific trend formats to specific measurable key performance indicators or KPIs.
KPIs.
Right.
The blueprint has this brilliant modular breakdown where it matches the type of video you make to the specific problem your business is facing that day. It treats a social media feed not as a scrapbook, but as an operational dial on a dashboard. Let's walk through these because this completely reframes the workload.
Let's do it.
Scenario 1. Customer acquisition. You are a new shop or you're heading into a slow season and you desperately need net new humans to walk through the door. The blueprint says this is when you deploy the hyperlocal POV microstories and the three-stop hop partnerships. Why those specific formats?
Because, as we explored earlier, those specific formats are heavily optimized for algorithmic search and discovery. They are designed to be served to people who don't already follow you. They drive profile visits from users who are actively planning a route or searching for local recommendations. They capture high-intent, net new prospects.
Got it. Okay, scenario 2. Drink trials. Let's say you just spent a month developing a highly profitable new seasonal vanilla cardamom latte, but your regulars keep ordering their standard black drip coffee. You need them to try the new high-margin item. You don't use a POV story for this. The text says you pivot to the comment-built drinks, the limited time drops, and the dramatic cup reveal moments.
Because the goal here isn't discovery. The goal is behavioral change. Those formats create immediate scarcity and urgency among your existing audience.
Right, they're regulars.
Crucially, they give the customer a specific, simple, pre-written script to repeat at the counter. They can just walk up and say, I want the drink from the video. It completely removes the social friction of asking about a new menu item.
Okay, scenario 3, and this is the bane of literally every restaurant owner's existence. Off-peak business. How do you smooth out the demand curve when the shop goes completely dead at 2:00 p.m. every Tuesday? The text advises leaning into time-anchored videos. You post content specifically titled the 2:00 p.m. quiet hour or the rainy day afternoon warm-up.
This is purely contextual marketing. You are matching the specific psychological mood and the temporal moment the viewer is currently experiencing.
Like reaching them when they are bored.
Right. Imagine a local office worker scrolling on their phone at their desk at 2:15 p.m. They are hitting that midday slump. Suddenly, they are served a beautifully lit, calm video featuring a steaming cup of tea in a quiet cafe, perfect for escaping the office, tagged just 2 blocks away. You're speaking directly to their immediate physiological need at the exact right time.
That is so smart. And finally, scenario 4. Catering and B2B orders. If you want a local law firm to order 50 coffees and pastries for a morning meeting, the blueprint says you completely abandon the beautiful latte art aesthetics. You stop posting slow-motion syrup pours. Instead, you post formats showing chaotic tray builds, massive batch prep, and perfectly organized delivery-ready packaging.
If we reverse engineer the buyer's mindset here, it makes perfect sense. An office manager tasked with ordering breakfast for 50 executives does not care if your barista can pour a perfect swan in the phone.
They really don't.
No, they care about logistical reliability. They care about lead time. They want visual, undeniable proof that your kitchen can handle a massive volume order without spilling it or delivering it an hour late. You tailor the visual format entirely to the specific KPI you're trying to drive.
I love the modularity of that, but I have to bring us back to the most critical small business question. I'm going to put my stressed out manager hat back on for a second. I am running these different formats. I'm trying to drive off peak traffic. How on earth do I actually track the ROI of this? If my staff is already overwhelmed making 100 drinks an hour, I absolutely cannot ask them to administer a marketing survey to every single customer. Did you see us on TikTok? Did you see us on Instagram? It will destroy the speed of service.
But you absolutely shouldn't. The brilliance of the Blueprint solution to tracking is its profound analog simplicity. It advocates for what it calls frictionless attribution right at the point of sale.
The comment keyword redemption. I read this and actually laughed out loud because it is so low-tech and so brilliant. Explain how this works.
You utilize the digital platform for the prompt and the analog world for the tracking. In your video, you tell the viewers, comment the word MAYPLE, and I will DM you the secret recipe build to order at the counter.
So they comment, you DM them, they walk into the store. Then what?
Operationally, it requires almost zero effort from the staff. When the customer orders the maple drink, the barista simply asks one yes or no question. Did you comment MAYPLE?
And if they did?
If the customer says yes, the barista takes a pen and makes a single tally mark on a scrap of paper taped next to the register. That is the entire tracking system.
It's a piece of paper.
At the end of the shift, the manager counts the tally marks. You don't need expensive, complex digital attribution software. You don't need QR code scanners that inevitably break. You have a clean, undeniable physical count of exactly how many real-world transactions that specific vertical video drove.
It is elegant in its simplicity. The text also mentions the show this video offer. You engineer a video with one sentence, one item, and one rule. Show this video to the barista to add a free flavor shot to your latte today. When the customer flashes the phone, the staff just taps a single pre-programmed social promo button on the point-of-sale system. It is completely frictionless, both for the customer and the barista.
Implementing this level of direct tracking allows a local business to fundamentally and finally redefine what vanity metrics mean. For a decade, businesses have been brainwashed to think that total views and total likes are the ultimate goal of social media.
But Heidenreich forcefully argues that for a brick-and-mortar location, total views are mostly irrelevant. The ultimate leading indicators for local foot traffic are saves and profile visits per 1,000 views.
Because those specific actions map directly to physical intent. Why does a user hit the save bookmark on a video of a local restaurant? They aren't saving it for aesthetic pleasure. They're using the save function to build a localized itinerary. They're planning a visit.
That makes sense.
And why do they click through to visit the profile page? They aren't just browsing, they're executing a logistical check. They're looking for the link to your opening hours. They are checking the address. They're looking in the background of your other videos to see if there's parking. A high ratio of saves and profile visits per 1,000 views is a massive, screaming signal of high physical intent.
The blueprint actually notes that you can measure this shift in intent just by reading the comments section. On a viral, global video, the comments are abstract. Wow, that looks so good, or I wish I lived near there. But on a truly successful, hyperlocal video, the questions transition into pure logistics. Do you guys have oat milk? Is the Wi-Fi fast enough to work from there? Is there street parking out front? That logistical interrogation is how you know you have hit the exact right audience.
And understanding and capturing that intent is becoming a matter of survival, not just optimization. The blueprint brings in some vital macroeconomic context to underscore why this predictable ROI is so essential right now. It cites data from Toast's menu price monitor, which shows that the median price for a regular standard coffee is at $3.61.
Wow.
That is up 3.4% from just December 2024.
So as inflation pushes prices up, consumer discretion naturally rises. People are thinking significantly harder about where they're going to spend that $4.
Precisely. The era of the convenience default is ending. You can no longer rely on people just wandering into your shop simply because you happen to be the closest geographic option on their walk. You have to actively win their intent and their budget before they even leave their house. Predictable, trackable, highly localized marketing isn't a luxury for a small business anymore. It is a critical defense mechanism against rising operational costs.
Okay, I am entirely sold on the strategy. It's brilliant. But we have to address the elephant in the room regarding time management. Doing all of this scripting microtension, dropping metadata, partnering with the bakery, tracking tally marks, it sounds like a full-time 40-hour-a-week job. How does a small team of 3 or 4 people actually execute this week after week without burning out?
By enforcing a rigid, batched production schedule, you have to work significantly smarter, not harder. The blueprint explicitly breaks down how to decouple the act of filming from the act of operating.
Yeah.
And it makes a brilliant, stress-reducing distinction between what you film during busy times versus what you film during slow times.
This was my absolute favorite operational takeaway. When the shop is absolutely slammed, there's a line out the door, the ticket printer is screaming, the steam wands are roaring, you do not attempt to shoot a beautifully lit cinematic masterpiece. That is when you shoot for proof.
Exactly. You pull out your phone for exactly 5 seconds. You capture a shaky, authentic clip of the massive line. You capture the chaotic pile of order tickets. You capture the rapid-fire handoff of drinks. It takes zero additional brain power, doesn't slow down the line, but it provides raw, undeniable social proof that your establishment is highly demanded.
And then you put the phone away. You survive the rush. Later, during the dead period, that 2.0 p.m. slump we talked about, that is when you shoot for quality.
Right.
That is when the manager or the barista builds the recurring series. That is when you take the time to film the deliberate first-person POV, the clear menu shot, or the highly satisfying visual transformation of deep cleaning the espresso machine.
The blueprint states that a marketer or an owner can realistically capture just 20 minutes of raw footage during that slow period. In that 20 minutes, they can shoot 6 distinct hooks, 6 cup reveals, and 6 localizing visual shots. Then, they sit down and batch edit them for the entire week.
You just treat the clips like Lego bricks. You mix and match the components. You take a busy rush shot, overlay a text hook about off-peak hours, and slap a local zip code metadata tag on it. You don't need to reinvent the wheel every single day. You test 2 or 3 of these modular formats, you ruthlessly discard what doesn't work, and you use those local intent signals, the saves and the profile visits, as your ultimate yardstick.
And when you finally find a combination that hits, when a specific 1-minute barista format suddenly drives 30 tally marks at the register, you don't just celebrate and try to invent something new. You lock it in. You turn it into an institution. You make it a repeatable mechanical machine. Same open shot, same text style, same day of the week, just a new variable inside the cup. That predictability is how the flywheel sustains itself week after week, month after month.
This has been a massive paradigm shift. Let's synthesize this incredible journey we've just been on. We started by completely dismantling the casino mindset of viral marketing. We threw away the idea of posting and praying. We learned how to leverage raw, hardwired human psychology exploiting microattention. satisfying the brain's desire for completion and drastically reducing cognitive load to build content formats that actually seize and hold human attention in a chaotic feed.
Psychology is the foundation.
Right. We then explored how to outsmart the global distribution network. We learned to feed specific digital breadcrumbs, that vital hyperlocal metadata, into the graph database so the algorithm ignores the globe and heavily targets a 5-mile radius. We talked about engineering organic advocacy, giving your daily customers a frictionless 10-second script to turn them into a localized, highly trusted broadcast network.
And we gamified the urgency.
Exactly. And finally, we connected the digital dots to the physical cash register. We tied specific video formats to specific business problems, whether that's customer acquisition or off-peak slumps, tracking it all with brilliantly simple analog tally marks, and redefining our metrics around actual local intent. The core actionable advice for you listening, whether you run an independent cafe, a neighborhood hardware store, or a boutique clothing shop, is simple. Pick one repeatable format, choose one hyperlocal metadata lever, and track one specific KPI with a piece of paper every single week. Build the machine.
It truly is a phenomenal, pragmatic blueprint for taking control of a physical business's digital destiny. You are building an engine of predictability. But if we step back and connect all of these mechanics to the broader macro picture of society, it raises a profoundly important and honestly a somewhat unsettling question. It's an implication that the blueprint dances around but doesn't explicitly resolve.
Oh, I love a good unsettling underlying implication. We've built the machine. What's the hidden cost? Let's hear it.
We have spent this entire hour detailing how these digital algorithms, driven by graph databases and geometric nodes, are becoming incredibly surgically adept at directing physical human foot traffic based entirely on hyperlocal video metadata. The saves, the profile visits, the three-stop hops.
Right.
If this trend continues to accelerate, and the 61% discovery statistic proves it already is, we have to ask a structural question. Are platforms like TikTok fundamentally replacing the utility of traditional objective tools like Google Maps and standard search engines for local discovery?
Wow. Think about that. Instead of opening a map, typing coffee near me, and looking at an objective geographic grid of what is closest to you, you are just opening a feed and being passively fed a highly curated, perfectly optimized vertical video that tells you exactly where to walk and exactly what to order when you get there.
Exactly. We are transitioning from objective geographic search to algorithmic behavioral curation. And here's the provocative thought. If our physical exploration of our own cities and our own neighborhoods is eventually entirely curated by a personalized algorithm, an algorithm, mind you, whose primary foundational directive is simply to maximize your digital watch time, what happens to serendipity in the real world?
You mean the entire concept of just taking a walk, taking a wrong turn down a side street, and stumbling across a hidden gem of a bookstore or a tiny bakery that doesn't even have a social media account?
Precisely. If every physical business is forced to perfectly optimize their physical aesthetic for the first 3 seconds of a vertical video just to survive inflation, and if the algorithm only routes human foot traffic to the places that have mastered the POV microstory and the microtension hook, the physical landscape of our cities will inevitably change.
That is wild to think about.
Neighborhoods might soon be entirely architected, funded, and shaped by what looks best on a backlit 6-inch screen rather than what actually feels best to experience in person. The mom-and-pop shop, with incredible food but terrible lighting and no metadata strategy, simply vanishes from the digital map and therefore it starves in the physical world. We are allowing a digital engagement machine to literally architect our physical reality.
That is a staggering thought to end on. We started this deep dive talking about how local marketing used to feel like walking into a casino, just blindly pulling a slot machine lever and hoping for a viral hit. Now we know it's not a casino at all. It is a highly engineered, deeply predictable machine.
That's all mechanics.
But maybe the real question we have to ask ourselves going forward is this. Are the local business owners the ones operating the digital machine, or is the algorithm actually operating us? Something to heavily ponder the next time you find yourself standing in line for a $6 latte, wondering exactly why you chose to cross the street and walk through that specific door.